Okay, it's been a couple weeks now since the news dropped that Mike Portnoy is back with Dream Theater, and I couldn't get out of my mind, like, kind of the legacy that Mike Mangini is leaving with the band. You know, they're kind of 2010 records, and they put out 5 of them, and I thought this would be a really good opportunity to kind of really look at those albums specifically, what Mike Mangini brought to those albums, how he influenced those albums, and kind of the drumming style and how it kind of shifted a little bit within those, 5 albums. So we're talking everything from a dramatic turn of events all the way to a view from the top of the world with their self-titled work, The Astonishing and Distance Over Time, kind of sandwiched between them. So we've got those 5 albums, and I thought I want to talk about that. So first, when Mike Portnoy left the band and Mike Mangini came into the fold, the band was pretty much good for material for the first album post Portnoy, which was a dramatic turn of events. And I mean, the album title was quite apt. It's so interesting to me because I do feel as if Mangini's drumming is at its strongest on that album, and it's a little bit of a shame because he wasn't a part of any of the writing sessions of that album. He came to the album with it pretty much fully formed, and he just had to lay down the track works. But as I mentioned, this album has some of his best work, like Bridges in the Sky, Breaking All Illusions, even Lost Not Forgotten on there, and even some of more of like the single tracks, like the singles off of that, like On the Backs of Angels, which is basically just a Pull Me Under cover. It feels as though it's some of his best work. It's ruthless, it's intense, it's relentless, and that is the style that Mike Mangini is so good at. I will be one of the first to admit that I never appreciated or really enjoyed his style in the Dream Theater fold, but I will also be one of the first to admit that he is a monster when it comes to playing fast and playing with precision. And this album really showcases those moments for him. It really does showcase his stuff and puts his inflections on there. So, yeah, I was a little, disappointed when the self-titled dropped and we move on to the second album. And there really isn't a whole lot on this album that made me really appreciate or at least recontextualize his drumming style into something that I could appreciate or enjoy. Outside of The Enemy Inside, which was like the big single off of this album, or the purely instrumental track of The Enigma Machine, this also holds a lot of my least favorite tracks from him and from the group overall, like The Looking Glass, The Bigger Picture, and Beyond the Veil, and Along for the Ride. Like these tracks, after sitting down and re-listening to them, because I haven't actually touched this album since 2013 when it came out, so like 10 years ago, I haven't really touched this album for 10 years, and I'm just like, it still doesn't really hold up. Like at first when I listened to the False Awakening Suite and The Enemy Inside, I was like, maybe I didn't give this album the fair shake, because like these tracks are powerful, they're heavy hitting, and again with Mike on the kit, it provides that really aggressive, very intense moments. And I'm like, maybe I needed to give this album another shake, maybe I needed to give this album a little bit more of its dues. But then once The Looking Glass came on and The Bigger Picture and Behind the Veil, I was like, oh, Fadofa, now I remember why I don't return to this album. And The Illumination Theory, it's still fine. Like, I think it's their best longer piece of music. Like, it's in the 22-minute mark across these albums, but at the end of the day, it's very similar to the Count of Tuscany, where you have this very beautiful, very symphonic and string section right near the middle that builds up into a big grand crescendo. And I feel as if they've done better work in the past. And, I at least appreciate and enjoy Mike's playing style on this track. And again, he's got that precision. He's got that monster behind it. It doesn't really lend itself very well to his style, to his bringing about of some really interesting and really fun moments. Then we come to the Astonishing, and I am one that I am a Astonishing apologist. I actually enjoy the Astonishing. I love sitting down and listening to it. I think it has its moments. I love this more Disney style of, Dream Theater. It's a beast, but this is probably, in terms of looking at it specifically through the scope of Mangini, the worst album for him. Like, there's a lot of moments on here that are void of any drumming at all. And the moments that do have it on here, I feel it's like lackluster. Like, they could have grabbed any old Joe off of the side of the street that knows how to hit a couple drumsticks together and get them to cover. Like, there's no real personality for Mike on this album that we didn't see on the first two. Like, at least with the first two, where you had those bigger tracks like Breaking All Illusions and Bridges in the Sky, where you could at least feel the kind of personality and the kind of like oomph that Mike was laying down. You don't really have anything on here. Like, even kind of the Disney villain tracks of like Lord Nefarious, which, I mean, take or leave however you want. Like, even with some of the bigger tracks from this album, and my personal favorite of A New Beginning, I feel like he's really pushed to the wayside and he's not really allowed to really develop or really showcase his stuff. Like, there are moments where he's basically just keeping time, he's keeping beat, but that's about it. Like, once we get to specifically in A New Beginning, where John Petrucci has his big guitar solo and it's just a 4/4 beat from Mike without any inflections, without any subtleties, without any kind of flourishes. It's literally just drum machine mode. And I'm like, is that his choice or is that the band's choice? Because I feel like any other drummer would have at least taken the opportunity to add a little bit of a spice here, add a little bit of a dish here. And it's a little bit of a shame, because when we get to, the Road to Revolution and 2285 entrance, we've got a little bit more power behind it. We got a little bit more of an oomph behind it. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel that personality. I'm starting to feel that really intense, hard-hitting moments, but I don't know, it's a little too late. So I do feel as if the Astonishing really done dirty Mike Mangini, because the best parts on this album are the ones that are void of any kind of his personality or his kind of inflections, and it's a little bit of a shame. So the last two records, the final two records, Distance Over Time and A View from the Top of the World, I feel as though, for me, they're a little bit interchangeable, which is kind of, it's a little bit of a shame. Now, at least we were able to get a little bit more of that personality. Like, Untethered Angels, right back, first track, we feel that intensity that Mike has, and that, as I keep mentioning, is where Mike shines. Mike shines with the quickness, the pacing, the aggressiveness, and with Room 137 and S2N, Signal to Noise. I think those are his two best tracks that he's ever been a part of, especially with S2N. Like, S2N, it's just so powerful. It's so aggressive, it's so intense, and this is the style of progressive metal music that Mike is made for. And I'm shocked that it took the band 3 full albums to get him to this point, or at least to allow him to get to this point. Like, again, I don't know if he's just a yes man and he's able to, like, whatever you want me to do, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to add anything more or anything less. I'm just going to do whatever you want me to do. But it's also a shame for us listeners, because we know what he's capable of and we want to hear him produce those fine moments. On other tracks like Pale Blue Dot, I'm like, this again is what I'm hoping for. This is what I really want with Mike Mangini. But then we get other tracks like Falling Into the Light, and I'm still not a big fan of Barstool Warrior. And I know At Wit's End is the big track from this album, but I'm not a big fan of that one. And same with Out of Reach. Even though I would say that Distance Over Time I like more than their self-titled album, and I would agree that it's a stronger album than The Astonishing, I don't know. It's just kind of another forgettable one, and same with View from the Top of the World. Like, it starts off really strong with the Alien. I really like Answering the Call and the big epic of Sleeping Giant. But I do feel as if the big epic, the 20+ minute track of the title track, View from the Top of the World, the best I can say about this album is that it's kind of forgettable. Like, I had to sit down, even though it was released 2 years ago. I remembered less from this album than I did from the self-titled album. Like, I remember sitting down and being like, I don't remember a thing from this album. Sitting down and listening to it, we have, again, a few moments on here from Mike Mangini that I really appreciate. Again, the Alien, that first track, it hits hard. It's got that aggression. It has that speed that Mike is able to command and really play with. But outside of that, it's not a whole lot. Alien, Answering the Call, Invisible Monster, and Sleeping Giant, like the first half of this album is strong. It's pretty strong. I just wish that there was more to really dig deep into. And again, I'm looking at this strictly through like the drumming on here. I'm not talking about Jordan Rudess's piano and keyboards. I'm not talking about John Petrucci's guitar styles. I'm just strictly looking at the drumming on here, and it's just serviceable. So it's a little bit of a shame that we've had these 5 albums and I can't really feel his presence really on here outside of a lacking of, like outside of those handful of tracks I had mentioned, S to N, A New Beginning, The Alien, Untethered Angels, On the Back of Angels, Bridges in the Sky, and Lost Not Forgotten. Like, all of these tracks are really, really good, and they service this track quite well. But I feel like it's such a shame that first album, The Dramatic Turn of Events, was really the best album that we got from Mangini. And that's such a shame when we had 10 years worth of music and the first one was really the best. I do want to take just a last little bit at the very end here just to talk a little bit about the live albums that Mike Mangini was a part of, because I feel as if that was really where Mangini shined the brightest, because he was able to play toe-to-toe with Portnoy's live stuff, but he basically just repurposed and reproduced the studio stuff. Like, if you listen to the Portnoy live stuff, there's a lot of extra stuff that he's put into all those tracks that he's made. But Mangini just basically covers what was on the album. So, like, right from the dramatic tour of events, the big, triple disc, I think it is, that covers the whole dramatic turn of events album and tour, hence the dramatic tour of events. I really, really enjoyed that. And it's one of my favorite live albums. It covers quite a bit of material, and Mangini is able to reproduce every note that is found on those albums. And even like Breaking the Fourth Wall live at the Boston Opera House, that was one of the live albums that I saw. I remember them playing this set, and it really did recontextualize a lot of the studio stuff. Like The Enemy Inside, The Shattered Fortress, even some of the tracks that I'm not a big fan of, like The Looking Glass and Along for the Ride. I at least really enjoy how they're able to, or how Mangini is able to basically recapture all of that really, really amazing stuff in a live setting. So, Mike Mangini is a brilliant and amazing live individual. And I couldn't, I'm kind of like beside myself listening to a lot of this. And I think outside of like Distant Memories, the Live in London that they put out in 2020, I think those were the 3 like official live albums that they did. And it's a little bit of a shame because like a good chunk of those, like, the second third of the Breaking the Fourth Wall is Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory. And Distant Memories, the whole 2/3, the second 2/3 of this album is the entirety of Scenes from a Memory. So it's, I don't know, I find it's very interesting that, that is where Mangini had to be, was basically playing a lot of the classics from Portnoy stuff. And it's honestly on the Lost Not Forgotten archive stuff that I felt like there was a lot of really interesting stuff. Like the Live in Berlin from 2019, where we had Untethered Angel, Nightmare to Remember, Falling into the Light, Peruvian Sky, Barstool Warrior, there we go. In the Presence of Part 1, Scene 7, Dance of Eternity, Lie, Pale Blue Dot, and As I Am. Like, not only was he able to take what Portnoy had put down on all those classic ones, but also take everything that he had been a part of and really contextualize it and really bring it into his own little playing area. So like, I really enjoyed that one. And there was another one that I really, really liked, which was Lost Not Forgotten Archives and Beyond Live in Japan 2017, which again starts off with Dark and Eternal Night, but then has some newer stuff, The Bigger Picture, Hell's Kitchen, The Gift of Music, Our New World, Portrait of Tracy, As I Am, and Breaking All Illusions. Again, I really love what he's doing in a live setting because he is so on point and so like precise that it blows me away. And I really, I think the biggest shame of this whole thing is that Dream Theater really only used Mangini as a session drummer rather than incorporating his style and his strengths to their benefit. Because as I've been saying throughout this entire video, the band burned brightest when they allowed Mangini to play his own style. And that was found on S2N. That was found on Breaking All Illusions. That was found on Bridges in the Sky. That was found on The Alien and Untethered Angels and on The Backs of Angels. Those were the tracks that I remember the most. When they kind of push him to the side and they don't really let him play, those are the tracks that I don't remember. So yeah. That's what I've got, kind of a little bit of a retrospective of these 5 records from Dream Theater from the 2010s, and I guess the first little bit of the 2020s. I really hope that Mike Mangini is able to find his feet. He's already got a solo record in the wings. I think if it's not currently out, it's going to be out in the next couple of weeks. And as I mentioned, he has a golden ticket right now to play with whoever he wants. So I really hope some up-and-coming band or a band that can really, really utilize his speed and precision takes him up, because, man, playing in like a thrash or speed metal outfit, that is exactly where he deserves to be. So that's what I've got for you guys today. That's my little ramble, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know of your own thoughts about this. What were your favorite moments from Mangini's run with Dream Theater? What were your favorite songs? What were your favorite albums? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. Because, that's what I've got. I'm really excited to hear where Dream Theater is going to go from here. I am excited that Portnoy is back in the band. As much as I love Mangini, I do feel as if Portnoy is a better fit for the music that Dream Theater was always trying to do post-Portnoy. So I'm really excited to see where Portnoy is going to go and how he's going to be recontextualized into the band, because Portnoy's done a lot of growing within the past 10 years, Like, he's done a lot with the Neil Morse Band, with the Winery Dogs, with even Flying Colors and Liquid Tension Experiment, and within Transatlantic, and all of the Neil Morse stuff. So, he's grown quite a bit as an artist, and I'm really excited to see how he's going to take what he's learned and contextualize it in Dream Theater. So, but that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.